Imagine a small wooden house in rural Mississippi in the 1950s. The air is hot and heavy. The roads are dusty. There are fields all around. This is where Oprah Winfrey was born in 1954. If you enjoy this content, subscribing to English to Inspire will help more people find these conversations. Oprah's early life was not easy. She was born to a teenage mother. Her parents were not married. At that time, this was very hard. People judged young single mothers. So baby Oprah went to live with her grandmother in Mississippi. Her grandmother was strict, but also loving in her own way. They were very poor. Sometimes they didn't have enough food. Sometimes they wore clothes made from potato sacks. Can you imagine wearing a dress made from a sack that once held potatoes? But there was one special thing in that small house. There were books. Her grandmother taught her to read when she was very young. Oprah was only 3 years old when she started reading the Bible out loud in church. Picture a tiny girl standing on a wooden chair, reading big words with confidence. The church was quiet. Adults looked at her with surprise. She felt proud. She felt seen. Reading became her safe place. When life felt hard, books opened a new world. In books, she could travel. She could meet different people. She could imagine a better future. Have you ever used books to escape from your problems? Think about that for a moment. Stories can give us hope when nothing else does. But her childhood also had deep pain. When she was still a child, she experienced abuse. This left emotional scars. Scars are marks that stay after a wound heals. She felt confused. She felt ashamed. She felt alone. And because she was just a child, she didn't understand that it wasn't her fault. Many children who go through trauma feel this way. They blame themselves. At school, Oprah was different. She loved to speak in front of the class. She loved words. She entered speech contests and won. Teachers noticed her talent. They saw her bright mind. One teacher once told her she had a gift. That small sentence stayed with her. Sometimes one adult believing in you can change your life. Has someone ever told you that you were good at something? Did you believe them?
There is a story from when Oprah was a little girl. She used to line up her dolls and pretend she was teaching them. She would speak clearly and seriously, like a real teacher. Even then, she loved to communicate. She loved to connect. She wanted to be heard.
But life was unstable. When she was 6, she moved to Milwaukee to live with her mother. The city felt different from Mississippi. It was bigger, louder, harder. Her mother worked long hours as a maid. Oprah often stayed home alone. She felt lonely. She searched for love and attention in the wrong places. At 9 years old, she was abused again, this time by people close to her. Imagine carrying that pain while still trying to be a normal child at school. She didn't talk about it for many years. She kept it inside. And when we keep pain inside, it grows. By the time she was a teenager, things were very difficult. She ran away from home. She made risky choices. She became pregnant at 14. The baby was born early and did not survive. This was a heavy moment in her life. So much sadness at such a young age. Now pause and think. If you only saw this beginning, would you expect this girl to become one of the most powerful women in media? Probably not. But here's something important. Your start does not decide your finish. Where you begin is not where you must stay. After all this pain, something changed. Her mother decided she could no longer control her. So she sent Oprah to live with her father in Nashville. And this move would begin a new chapter, one where discipline, education, and strong rules would slowly build a different future. When Oprah arrived in Nashville to live with her father, everything felt different. The house was clean and organized. There were clear rules. Her father, Vernon, was strict. He believed in education. He believed in discipline. At first, Oprah didn't like it. After so much chaos, structure felt uncomfortable. But sometimes what feels uncomfortable is exactly what we need. Her father made her read a book every week. Then she had to write a report about it. Imagine a teenage girl sitting at a small table, late at night, writing about characters and stories while other teenagers were outside having fun. She didn't know it yet, but this habit was building her future. Reading was no longer just an escape. It became training. Vernon also made sure she did well in school. If her grades dropped, there were consequences. He didn't accept excuses. At first, Oprah felt angry. Why so many rules? Why so much pressure? But slowly, something changed inside her. She began to see that she was capable. She wasn't the broken girl from Milwaukee. She was smart. She was strong. At school in Nashville, teachers noticed her again. She joined the debate team. She participated in drama club. She spoke with confidence. When she stood in front of the class, her voice was steady. Words came easily. Speaking felt natural, like breathing. Have you ever found something that feels natural to you? Something that doesn't feel forced? There is a story from this time that shows her growing confidence. Oprah entered a local speech contest. She stood on stage looking at the judges. Her hands were shaking at first, but when she began to speak, her fear disappeared. Her voice filled the room. She spoke about the power of freedom and opportunity. When she finished, the audience applauded loudly. She won first place. Winning that contest changed her life. The prize was a scholarship to Tennessee State University. Think about that. A scholarship means free education because of talent and hard work. For a girl who once wore clothes made from sacks, this was huge. Education became her door out. At 17, something else happened. She entered the Miss Black Tennessee beauty pageant. Now this wasn't only about beauty. It was about speaking, answering questions, showing confidence. She didn't look like the typical beauty queen at that time. But when she spoke, people listened. She won the title. And with that title came an opportunity to work at a local radio station. Picture this moment. A young Oprah sitting in a small radio studio, big headphones on her ears, a microphone in front of her. The red light turns on. That means you are live. Your voice goes out to thousands of people. For many, this would be terrifying. For her, it felt exciting. She loved it. At 19, she became one of the youngest news anchors at a local TV station in Nashville. Imagine that responsibility at such a young age. She wore serious clothes, she read serious news, but inside, she was still learning who she was. Sometimes she felt she didn't fit the traditional image of a news anchor. She was emotional. She cared deeply about stories. When reporting sad news, she sometimes cried. Her bosses didn't always like that. They told her to be more serious, more distant, less emotional. But here's something interesting. The thing they criticized would later become her greatest strength, her ability to feel, her ability to connect. Have you ever been told that something about you was wrong, but later you realized it was your gift? Think about that. Maybe that sensitive heart, maybe that curiosity, maybe that strong opinion. During this time, Oprah was building confidence step by step. It wasn't magic. It wasn't overnight success. It was small actions every day. Reading, studying, speaking, showing up, even when she felt unsure. And then came a phone call that would change everything again. A job offer from a struggling morning talk show in Chicago. The show had low ratings. Ratings mean how many people watch. The show was almost failing. Most people would see this as a risk, but for Oprah, it was an open door. She packed her bags. She left Nashville. And as the plane landed in Chicago, she had no idea that this cold, windy city would soon know her name, and that her natural warmth and emotion would transform television forever. When Oprah arrived in Chicago in 1984, winter was still in the air. The wind was cold and strong. The city felt fast and serious. She was only 30 years old. The show she was hired to host was called AM Chicago. It was not popular. In fact, it was almost at the bottom of the ratings list. Many people thought it would be canceled soon. On her first day, she walked into the studio and looked around. Bright lights, big cameras, cables on the floor, people moving quickly. She felt nervous, but also excited. The producers told her, "Just read the questions." But Oprah didn't want to just read. She wanted to talk. She wanted to listen. She wanted real conversations. In one of her first episodes, she interviewed a group of regular people, not celebrities. They talked about relationships and daily struggles. Instead of staying distant, Oprah leaned forward. She asked simple, honest questions. How did that make you feel? What happened next? When someone cried, she didn't look away. She didn't rush to the next question. She stayed in that moment. The audience felt something different. This wasn't cold television. It felt warm. It felt human. Ratings began to rise quickly. Within months, AM Chicago became the #1 talk show in its time slot. Think about that. A show that was almost dead suddenly became #1.
There's a famous story from that first year. Oprah did a show about weight loss. She had struggled with her weight for many years. Instead of hiding it, she talked about it openly. One day, she rolled a wagon full of fat onto the stage. It was a dramatic moment. She said this was the amount of weight she had lost. The audience gasped. Some people were shocked. Some were inspired. But later, she admitted something honest. She said the extreme diet she used was not healthy. She gained the weight back. And instead of pretending it didn't happen, she talked about it again on air. Imagine sharing your failure with millions of people. That takes courage. Have you ever tried something, failed, and felt embarrassed? She showed that failure is part of the journey. Another powerful moment happened when she invited survivors of abuse to speak on her show. For years, Oprah had kept her own childhood trauma private, but listening to their stories moved her deeply. One day, she decided to share her own experience on live television. Her voice was soft, her eyes filled with tears. The studio was silent. That moment changed everything. Viewers saw her not just as a host, but as a real person, someone who had suffered and survived. Phone lines were flooded with calls. People said, "Me too." They felt less alone. Think about the power of saying, "This happened to me." It gives others permission to speak. In 1986, the show was renamed The Oprah Winfrey Show. It became nationally syndicated. That means it was broadcast all over the country. Her name was now in the title. That is a big step. It means the show depends on you, your personality, your presence. But success brought pressure. Critics said she was too emotional, too personal, too different from traditional television. Some people didn't take her seriously. But instead of changing who she was, she leaned into her style. She focused on connection, empathy, and real stories. She once said she wanted her show to be a platform for growth. A platform means a place where ideas can be shared. And slowly, that's what it became. Not just gossip, not just entertainment. It became a place for healing conversations. Picture Oprah walking onto the stage at the start of each show. The audience standing and clapping. She smiles wide. She says, "Welcome," and you can feel that she means it. What started as a risky job in a struggling show was becoming something much bigger. And soon, Oprah would make a bold decision that would give her not only fame, but real power and control over her own future. As the Oprah Winfrey Show grew more popular, something inside Oprah also grew. It wasn't just confidence, it was awareness. She began to understand how powerful her platform really was. Millions of people were watching every day. Her words could change opinions. Her support could change lives. But there was one big problem. She didn't own her show. At that time, many TV hosts worked for big companies. They were the face on the screen, but they didn't control the business. They didn't own the rights. That means the company made most of the money and decisions. Oprah started to ask herself a simple question. Why not me? Why can't I own my work? In 1986, she made a bold move. She created her own production company called Harpo Productions. Harpo is Oprah spelled backwards. It was a small detail, but it meant something. It was personal. It was hers. Through Harpo, she negotiated ownership of her show. That was rare, especially for a black woman in television at that time. Imagine sitting at a long table in a meeting room. Executives in suits, papers everywhere, serious faces. And there's Oprah, calm but firm, asking for ownership. That takes courage. She wasn't just thinking about today's paycheck. She was thinking long-term. She was building control over her future. This decision changed everything. Because she owned her show, she earned not just a salary, but profits. Profits are the money left after paying expenses. As the show became more successful, her wealth grew quickly. But more important than money was freedom. She could choose topics. She could decide the direction. There was a moment that shows how serious she was about control. Early in her career, she starred in the movie The Color Purple, directed by Steven Spielberg. The film was based on a powerful novel about black women in the American South. Oprah was nervous at first. She worried she wasn't good enough for Hollywood. When she was cast, she cried with joy. Filming the movie was intense. Long days, emotional scenes. She worked alongside talented actors like Whoopi Goldberg. Being on that set opened her eyes. She realized she could do more than just host a show. After that experience, she promised herself something. She would never again be just an employee. She would create opportunities for herself and others. Through Harpo Productions, she later produced films, television series, and projects that told meaningful stories. Have you ever felt limited in your job? Like you were working hard, but someone else controlled everything? Oprah understood that feeling. Instead of complaining, she studied the business. She learned contracts. She asked questions. She surrounded herself with smart advisors. That's an important lesson. Talent is powerful, but knowledge of the business protects you. There's another small but important story. One day, a producer suggested focusing more on sensational topics, more drama, more shocking content. It would bring higher ratings quickly. Oprah thought about it. Higher ratings meant more money. But she asked herself, is this who I want to be? She decided to move away from purely dramatic topics and toward personal growth, health, relationships, and self-improvement. Some people said it was risky, but she trusted her instinct, and the audience followed. Think about this. Success isn't just about going higher. It's about choosing the right direction. It's easy to chase attention. It's harder to build something meaningful. As the 1990s continued, Oprah wasn't just a talk show host anymore. She was becoming a businesswoman, a producer, a leader, and soon, she would discover another simple idea that would turn ordinary books into bestsellers and create one of the most powerful reading communities in the world. In 1996, Oprah had a simple idea. She loved books. Books had saved her as a child. They had opened her mind. So she asked herself, what if I share this love with my audience? That's how Oprah's book club was born. At first, it seemed small, just a short segment in her show. She would hold up a book and say, this is my next pick. She would explain why she liked it. She would talk about the characters, the emotions, the lessons. She spoke like a friend recommending a story, not like a critic. The first book she chose was The Deep End of the Ocean. It was an emotional story about loss and family. After Oprah announced it, something amazing happened. The book sold out in many stores. Publishers were shocked. Bookstores had to order thousands of new copies. One recommendation from Oprah could change an author's life overnight. Imagine being a writer sitting at home and suddenly hearing that Oprah picked your book. Your phone starts ringing. Sales go up. People all over the country are reading your words. That kind of influence is rare. There's a beautiful moment from one of her book club episodes. She invited an author to the show. The writer was nervous, hands shaking, voice trembling. Oprah looked at her warmly and said, your words matter. The author started to cry. You could see years of hard work in that moment. Years of rejection and doubt. Oprah didn't just choose easy, light books. Sometimes she picked difficult stories. Stories about trauma, racism, addiction, or family pain. She believed that reading about hard things helps us understand ourselves better. She wanted people to think deeply, to talk honestly. One powerful example was when she selected A Million Little Pieces by James Frey. At first, she praised the book as an honest story about addiction. It became a huge success. But later, it was discovered that parts of the story were not true. Many details were exaggerated. The audience felt betrayed. Oprah invited the author back to her show. This time, the conversation was serious. She asked tough questions. She expressed her disappointment. Some people criticized her for promoting the book in the first place. Others praised her for holding the author accountable. It was a difficult moment. Imagine being in her position. Millions of viewers watching. Trust on the line. She could have ignored the issue, but she faced it directly. She said that honesty matters. That trust matters. It was uncomfortable, but necessary. Have you ever trusted someone and felt disappointed? It hurts. But how we respond to that disappointment says a lot about us. Oprah showed that admitting mistakes and asking hard questions is part of leadership. The book club became more than a TV segment. It became a movement. Friends met in living rooms to discuss stories. Strangers connected in libraries. People who hadn't read a book in years started reading again. Oprah once said that reading helps you know you are not alone, that someone else has felt what you feel. Think about your own life. When was the last time you read a book that changed you? Maybe it gave you courage. Maybe it helped you forgive. Books can quietly shape who we become. Through her book club, Oprah proved something powerful. Influence is not only about fame, it's about guiding attention toward something meaningful. She used her spotlight to lift writers, ideas, and conversations. And as her influence continued to grow, she began thinking even bigger, not just about television, not just about books. She started imagining a network of her own, a space fully dedicated to inspiration, growth, and real stories told in her own way. By the late 2000s, Oprah had already conquered daytime television. For 25 years, The Oprah Winfrey Show had been part of people's daily routine. Many viewers felt like they knew her personally, but inside, she felt a new pull. She didn't want to repeat the same formula forever. She wanted to build something bigger. In 2008, she announced that her talk show would end in 2011. People were shocked. The show was still successful. Ratings were strong. Money was flowing. Why stop at the top? But Oprah believed in leaving on her own terms. She didn't want to wait until the audience lost interest. She wanted to grow. During those final seasons, emotions were high. There's a scene from the very last episode in 2011. The studio was quiet. No big celebrity guests. Just Oprah standing alone on stage. She spoke directly to the audience. Her voice was calm but emotional. She thanked viewers for welcoming her into their homes. Many people cried. It felt like saying goodbye to a friend. But it wasn't the end of her story. It was a shift. In 2011, she launched the Oprah Winfrey Network, also known as OWN. Starting a network is very different from hosting a show. Now, she wasn't just responsible for one program. She was responsible for an entire channel, dozens of shows, hundreds of employees, millions of dollars at risk. The beginning was not easy. Ratings were lower than expected. Critics were quick to speak. Some headlines said the network was failing. Imagine reading those words after building such a strong career. That can hurt. That can shake your confidence. There's a story from this time that shows her honesty. In one interview, Oprah admitted she had made mistakes. She said she tried to do too much. She said she wasn't fully focused at first. Instead of blaming others, she looked at herself. That kind of self-reflection is powerful. It means asking, what can I do better? She decided to step in more directly. She adjusted the programming. She focused on authentic storytelling again. One of the major successes came with shows like Super Soul Sunday, where she had deep conversations about life, purpose, and spirituality. These talks felt calm and thoughtful, very different from loud reality TV. Another big moment was her interview with Lance Armstrong in 2013. He had been accused of using performance-enhancing drugs in cycling. For years, he denied it. Oprah sat across from him in a simple room. 2 chairs, soft lighting, no distractions. She asked direct questions. He finally admitted the truth. The world watched. Some people said she was too gentle. Others said she handled it with balance. But again, she showed something important. She was willing to have hard conversations. She wasn't afraid of serious topics. Think about your own life. Have you ever started something new and faced unexpected problems? Maybe a business idea didn't grow quickly. Maybe a project didn't go as planned. The easy reaction is to quit. The stronger reaction is to adjust. OWN slowly found its identity. Shows like Queen Sugar and Greenleaf connected with audiences. The network became profitable after a few years. It wasn't instant success. It required patience. It required learning from mistakes. Oprah once said that real growth often comes after discomfort. When things feel unstable, you discover who you really are. Building OWN was uncomfortable, but it expanded her role from host to media leader. And while she was building this network, another dream was quietly growing in her heart. A dream not about television ratings, but about giving back in a way that could change young lives forever. While Oprah was building her network and managing big projects, there was another dream she had carried for many years. It was quieter than television. It was more personal. It was about education. Oprah often said that education saved her life. Remember those nights reading books at her father's table? Those school contests? That scholarship? She never forgot that education gave her a way out. So she started asking herself a question. How can I give this same chance to other girls? In the early 2000s, during a trip to South Africa, she visited schools in poor communities. She met young girls who were bright and curious, but had very few resources. Some classrooms were crowded. Some had broken windows. Many students shared old textbooks. Still, their eyes were full of hope. There's a story from one of those visits. Oprah was sitting in a small classroom. The walls were simple. The desks were worn. She asked the girls about their dreams. One girl stood up and said she wanted to be a doctor. Another said she wanted to be a leader. They spoke with courage. But Oprah knew talent alone was not enough. They needed opportunity. That visit touched her deeply. She decided to build a school for girls in South Africa. Not just any school, but a leadership academy. A place with high standards, strong teachers, safe spaces. She invested more than $40 million of her own money. That's a huge personal commitment. In 2007, the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls opened its doors. The opening ceremony was emotional. Oprah stood on stage with the students in their uniforms. She told them, "You are my daughters." You could see tears in her eyes. For her, this was not charity. It was family. But again, the journey was not perfect. Soon after the school opened, there were reports of misconduct involving a staff member. The news spread quickly. Critics questioned her decision. Headlines were harsh. It was painful. Imagine building something from your heart, then seeing it connected to a scandal. Oprah flew to South Africa immediately. She met with the students and their families. She apologized. She promised transparency. She said the safety of the girls was her priority. She could have distanced herself. She could have blamed others. Instead, she stayed involved. She strengthened policies. She improved supervision. She continued funding and supporting the academy. Over time, the school stabilized. Graduates went on to universities around the world. Think about this. Doing good does not mean avoiding problems. Even good intentions can face challenges. What matters is how you respond when things go wrong. One graduate once shared a story about writing a letter to Oprah. In the letter, she explained how the academy changed her life. She described studying late at night in a safe dormitory, dreaming about becoming an engineer. She said she now believed she deserved success. That word, deserved, is powerful. Have you ever struggled to believe you deserved something better? A better job, a healthier relationship, a new start? Oprah wanted those girls to believe they deserved more. Through this school, she showed a different side of success. It's not just about building your own career. It's about lifting others as you rise. It's about opening doors that were once close to you. As the years passed, Oprah's role in media became more selective. She didn't need to be everywhere. She chose projects carefully. And in those choices, you could see a woman thinking deeply about her legacy, about what she wanted her life to represent when all the cameras eventually turned away. As Oprah grew older, something shifted inside her. She no longer felt the need to prove herself. For many years, she had worked nonstop, show after show, interview after interview, business meeting after business meeting. But now, she started asking a quieter question. What really matters to me? She began choosing her projects more carefully. Instead of daily television, she focused on meaningful interviews and special conversations. One example was her interview series with public figures where she talked about life, mistakes, and growth. When she sat across from someone, she wasn't trying to create drama. She was trying to understand. There's a powerful scene from one of her later interviews with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The setting was simple: a garden, 2 chairs, soft light. Oprah listened more than she spoke. When difficult topics came up, she leaned in gently and asked, "Were you silent, or were you silenced?" That question traveled around the world. It showed her skill. Sometimes one sentence can open a deep truth. Even after decades in media, she prepared carefully. She read notes. She studied background details. She respected the weight of serious conversations. Success didn't make her lazy, it made her more intentional. At the same time, she became more open about her own personal growth. She talked about therapy. She talked about self-awareness. Self-awareness means understanding your own feelings and patterns. She admitted that for years she tried to please everyone. She wanted approval. Over time, she learned to say no. Have you ever struggled to say no? Maybe you accepted extra work when you were already tired. Maybe you agreed to something just to avoid conflict. Oprah realized that saying no protects your energy. It protects your peace. There's a small but telling story. Once, she was invited to many social events during award season. In the past, she would have attended all of them, smiling, networking, being visible. But one year, she decided to stay home more. She chose quiet evenings, reading, reflecting. Some people were surprised, but she said she no longer wanted to live for appearances. Her relationship with longtime partner Stedman Graham also showed stability. They never married, which surprised many people. In interviews, Oprah explained that they valued their independence. They chose commitment without traditional pressure. It worked for them. It may not work for everyone, but it fit their lives. She also became more honest about aging. In a world that often celebrates youth, she spoke about accepting her body and her changing appearance. She still faced challenges with weight. She still had ups and downs, but she stopped chasing perfection. Instead, she focused on health and balance. Think about this stage of life. When you've achieved a lot, what do you chase next? More money, more fame, or more peace? Oprah began to prioritize peace. One of her recurring messages became simple: live your best life, not a perfect life, not a life without mistakes. Just your best life. That means using your gifts, being honest with yourself, growing slowly. If you look at her journey, from that small wooden house in Mississippi to global recognition, you see something clear. Her power didn't come only from talent. It came from reflection, from asking herself hard questions, from adjusting again and again. And when you step back and look at the whole path, you start to see the deeper lessons hidden inside her story. Lessons about pain, courage, ownership, and the quiet strength that builds over time. When you look at Oprah's life from the outside, you see success, wealth, influence, famous interviews. But when you slow down and look closely, you see something more human. You see a girl who felt invisible, a teenager who made painful mistakes, a young woman who was told she was too emotional for television. Think about that little girl in Mississippi again, wearing simple clothes, reading the Bible out loud in church. She didn't know she would become one of the most recognized women in the world. She only knew how to read with confidence. She only knew how to speak clearly, step by step. Those small skills became the foundation of everything. One important lesson from her story is this: your weakness can become your strength. Early in her news career, producers told her she was too emotional. She cared too much. She reacted too deeply to stories. But that emotional connection later became her signature style. Audiences trusted her because she felt real. Have you ever tried to hide a part of yourself because someone criticized it? Maybe you talk too much. Maybe you feel too deeply. Maybe you dream too big. What if that very thing is your future advantage? Another lesson is about ownership. When Oprah created Harpo Productions and fought to own her show, she changed her financial future. She understood that working hard is important, but owning your work changes the game. Ownership gives you control. It gives you stability. It gives you power to decide. You don't need a television show to apply that lesson. Maybe ownership means learning more about your profession. Maybe it means starting a small side project. Maybe it means saving and investing wisely. Control often grows from knowledge. There is also the lesson of facing pain instead of hiding it. When Oprah shared her story of abuse on national television, she could have stayed silent. It would have been easier, but her honesty helped millions of people feel less alone. She turned her private pain into public healing. Think about your own struggles. Is there something you've been carrying quietly? You don't need to share it with the world, but maybe sharing it with one trusted person could lighten the weight. Silence can protect you, but it can also isolate you. And then there's the lesson of growth. Oprah ended her famous show at its peak. She risked building a new network that almost failed at first. She invested in a school that faced early challenges. She kept moving. She kept adjusting. She didn't freeze when things became difficult. Have you noticed that growth usually feels uncomfortable? Starting a new job, learning a new skill, ending a relationship that no longer fits. Discomfort often means change is happening. Oprah once said that what she knows for sure is that your life speaks to you. It whispers at first. If you don't listen, it gets louder. That idea is simple but powerful. Are you listening to your own inner voice? Or are you only listening to noise from outside? If any of these moments from her journey stayed in your mind, hold on to them. Maybe it's the image of a little girl reading out loud. Maybe it's a young woman demanding ownership. Maybe it's a leader admitting mistakes and adjusting her path. Her story reminds us that beginnings don't limit endings. Pain doesn't cancel potential, and small, steady steps can lead farther than you ever imagined. If any of these ideas stuck in your head, I'd love to hear them. As the years continued, Oprah also stepped more openly into the world of public influence beyond television. She gave speeches at universities. She spoke at award ceremonies. One of the most memorable moments was her speech at the Golden Globe Awards in 2018. She stood on a large stage, bright lights above her, wearing a simple black dress. The room was full of powerful actors and filmmakers. Yet when she spoke, the atmosphere became quiet and focused. In that speech, she talked about truth. She talked about women who had been silent for years. She shared a memory of being a little girl watching Sidney Poitier win an Oscar. She remembered sitting on the floor, staring at the television, seeing a black man honored in a way she had never seen before. That moment, she said, opened her imagination. It showed her what was possible. Imagine being that child again, sitting close to the screen, feeling your world expand because you see someone who looks like you succeed. Representation matters. Seeing possibility matters. Oprah understood that her own visibility now carried that same power for others. There's another story from her later years that shows her mindset. During an interview, she was asked if she ever felt satisfied. She paused before answering. She said satisfaction doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you appreciate what you have while still being curious. That balance is not easy. Many people either chase more without gratitude or settle without ambition. She tried to hold both. She also became more selective about friendships and partnerships. She often said that the people around you shape your life. If you spend time with negative voices, your thinking shrinks. If you spend time with hopeful, disciplined people, your thinking expands. It sounds simple, but it's true. Think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. How do they influence you? Another quiet but powerful habit she kept was journaling. She wrote down her thoughts, her fears, her dreams. Writing helped her slow down. In a busy world, slowing down is rare. Have you ever tried writing your thoughts at the end of the day? It can feel strange at first, but it helps you see patterns. It helps you understand yourself better. Even with all her success, she still faced criticism that never completely disappeared. Some people questioned her influence. Some disagreed with her political opinions. Others criticized her business decisions. But over time, she seemed less reactive. She once explained that not every opinion deserves your energy. That's a hard lesson, especially in a world where everyone has a voice online. She focused instead on impact, on the girls graduating from her academy, on readers discovering new authors, on viewers feeling understood during a difficult interview. Impact is quieter than fame. It doesn't always make headlines, but it lasts longer. When you step back and look at the full picture of her life, it feels less like a straight line and more like a series of brave turns. A move to Nashville, a risky job in Chicago, a decision to own her show, a choice to end it at the top, a network that struggled before it stabilized, a school that faced challenges but continued. Each turn required courage. Courage doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like showing up again after failure. Sometimes it looks like admitting you were wrong. Sometimes it looks like saying no to something that doesn't fit anymore. If there's one thread that connects everything in her story, it's responsibility. She took responsibility for her healing, responsibility for her business, responsibility for her influence. That doesn't mean she was perfect. It means she stayed engaged. She stayed willing to learn. And maybe that's the quiet invitation in her journey. Not to become famous, not to build a media empire, but to take ownership of your own story, to look at your past without shame, to use your gifts without apology, to keep adjusting when life shifts. Picture that small girl again, standing on a chair in church, reading out loud. She couldn't see the future, she could only use her voice in that moment. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Use our voice today. Take one brave step, and trust that small steps, repeated over time, can carry us farther than we ever imagined.